Good morning, students. I'm Shaila Goel, your psychology teacher. We are doing the chapter Self and Personality, chapter number 2. Now, students, you already know that assessment refers to the procedures used to evaluate or differentiate between people on the basis of certain characteristics. See, assessment can be done formally as well as informally. Informal assessment is done by the neighbors, family members. They see you, they observe certain characteristics, and they just make some kind of an image in their minds. That is informal assessment, right? But the formal assessment is done using various tools. Now, the goal of assessment is to understand and predict behavior with minimum error and maximum accuracy. Now, students, you have to understand that here we are not going to predict like an astrology or numerology or something else. Here we have to do it scientifically. We have to observe the behavior and then we have to predict them. So, besides promoting our understanding, assessment is also useful for diagnosis, training, placement, counseling, and other purposes. Today, we are going to understand the projective techniques. Projective techniques are very important integral part of assessment of in psychology. See, students, direct methods of personality assessment cannot uncover the unconscious part of our behavior. There are some things which are within us, embedded within us, and they cannot be uncovered with the direct measures like self-report measures. So we use projective techniques. Projective techniques were developed to assess unconscious motives and feelings. These techniques are based on the assumption that a less structured or unstructured stimuli or situation will allow the individual to project his or her feelings, desires, and needs onto that situation. These projections are interpreted by the experts. Now, students, there are many people who have worked on the projective techniques. Now, here the main point of projective techniques is they are unstructured. There is nothing wrong or right in the answers. It is about the evaluation. There is a subjective interpretation in the projective techniques. A variety of projective techniques have been developed and they use various kinds of stimuli material and situations for assessing personality. Some of them require reporting associations with stimuli, some involve story writing around pictures, some require sentence completion, some require expression through drawing, and some require choice of stimuli from a large set of stimuli. Now, students, here in projective techniques, there are different varieties. Some involve picture making, some involve story writing, some involve sentence completion. All of them are directed towards understanding the unconscious motives of an individual. That is why they are very important. While the nature of the stimuli and responses in these techniques vary enormously, all of them do share the following features. The common features between the projective techniques are the stimuli are relatively or fully unstructured and poorly defined. Right? As you go on in this video, you will understand how much unstructured the stimuli can be. You can make out anything from the stimuli, right? It depends on your own unconscious thoughts and feelings that how you will interpret that stimuli. The person being assessed is usually not told about the purpose of assessment and the method of scoring and interpretation. Now, as you already know from class 11 that we should have an informed consent. Yes, we should have informed consent, but in projective techniques, we do not tell the subject about the reality of the situation because it will color the reaction of that individual. So we tell them afterwards, that is debriefing. The person is informed that there is no correct or incorrect responses That is why, because of this situation, the person can be very creative in writing the stories, or writing or drawing a diagram or a picture or anything else. The person will not think what is right or wrong, but he will think what he wants to, right? Each response is considered to reveal a significant aspect of personality. Now, as psychologists, every person believes that the things that are been on the paper, on the test, they reveal something about the personality of an individual. So everything is important, every aspect is important. Scoring and interpretation are lengthy and sometimes subjective. Now, sometimes, because of the kind of the information that we are receiving, there can be personal bias from the scorer point of view, right? Because they can be subjective, but the interpretation is always lengthy. Now, students, let us understand about projective techniques. Projective techniques was understood very important, right? Here the questions are strongly agree or strongly disagree types, right? And these are known as projective techniques. In this video, we are going to first understand about Rorschach test and the thematic A perception test, that is TAT. Now, the things should be thought not superficially, but we have to dig deeper. What are projective tests? Those tests which help us to understand beyond the conscious mind. जो हमारे ऊपर है उससे आगे देखने के अंदर जो देखता है, हेल्प करता है, वो होता है प्रोजेक्टिव टेस्ट. But they can be biased from the subjective, due to subjective interpretation. Now, they reveal unconscious thought processes. We try to understand what are unconscious thought processes, right? Now, students, to understand more, you will see that Rorschach inkblot tests are most widely used along with TAT. Now, let us understand Rorschach test. These are known as inkblot test, and the developer was Hermann Rorschach, right? Originally, it was created to diagnose schizophrenia, but after that, it gained popularity in 1960s. They tried to unveil what is inside our brain and how we are going to interpret any drawing. So, interpretation can be different for every individual. What did they see? How long did it take them to see this, right? For them, there can be ink color. For some others, it can be a tree, it can be a water balloon, right? We have to understand all these things. Now, it was further developed by Wayne Holzman, right? He gave 45 cards with 22 elements, whereas Herman has given only 10 ink plots, right? Now, for the evaluation, we have to understand what is the time taken by the subject, what was the kind of thinking, was it very bizarre, or what kind of a sexual content is there in their thinking process. Now, thematic A perception test is also used till now. The psychologist or the therapist gives the thematic A perception test to know the unconsciousness. It was developed by Murray and Morgan, right, in 1930. It consists of 30 black and white picture cards and one black card. Now, every person can depict the pictures differently. To understand how a person depicts a picture, this test was developed. In this, you look at the picture and create a story. You describe the feeling of each character, how they resolve the problems, what are the strategies used by the brain, right? We also try to understand what is the past, present, and evaluate the person for the career options also, right? Now, students, you have to think what is important in the things. See, the person has to look into lots of things. We are talking about artificial intelligence and everything, but we cannot ignore the psychological issues. We have infinite amount of answers for any given question, right? When it is now the Roche in block test are the pictures like this. It can be color, it can be black white. Now you have to remember that Roche ink block test consist of 10 bilaterally symmetrical mirror image ink blots printed in separate cards. 5 ink blots are without color, they are black and white. 2 ink blots are red and white. The remaining 3 ink blots are pastel colors, right? In this test, the subject is introduced to the technique. They are going to get the instructions. Then there will be 3 phases: the response phase, the inquiry phase, and the testing of the limits. See, you can see the various images that are in the ink blots. The person is asked to respond what they see, right? There is no problem being, there is only verbal attention, right? Examiner will always be silent, and if the person is not able to see anything, there will be little prompting, right? Like we are not in hurry, you can find something in it. If you have time and look some more, I think you will find something else too. Now for all this, there is a response time that is noted, as well as the total time that is taken. It is conducted after all responses are given to all 10 cards. The information is gained and needed to score accurately. See, with the examiner will use non-directive questions so that the subject can answer it. There is a complete location sheet also, right? Perceptual set displayed through projective techniques are used, right? Responses are scored along 3 categories: location, determinants, content, and form. Now these cards are of 7 by 10 inches size. Cards are administered individually in 2 phases. Now first is performance proper, where subjects are shown the cards and asked to tell what they see in them. And in the inquiry phase, a detailed report of the response is prepared by asking the subject where, how, and on what basis that the response has been made. Next is fine judgment is needed to place the response in the meaningful context. The interpretation of this test require extensive training. It enables the examiner to restructure the situation by asking specific questions that provide additional information concerning the personality functioning. It is also used to identify any confusion or misunderstanding concerning the task. It also helps to aid the examiner in determining if the test taker is able to refocus percepts given a new frame of reference. Right, students? Now we are coming to TAT. Let us understand it a little bit more broadly. It was constructed by Morgan and Murray. Now it is little more structured than inkblot test. Inkblot test did not have any regular feature in the pictures, but in this TAT test, there are 30 black and white picture cards and 1 blank card. Each picture card depicts one or more people in a variety of situations. Each picture is printed out on the card. Some cards are used with adults, males and females, and others are used with boys or girls. Still others are used in some combinations. 20 cards are appropriate for a subject, although a lesser number of cards, even 5, have been used successfully by different psychologists. The cards are presented one at a time. Now when the subject has written the story about that card, right, then only we will show the next card, right? The subject has to tell what led up to the situation, what is happening at the moment, and what will happen in the future. what are the characters and what they are feeling and thinking. What is the relationship between the characters if there are more than one character. A standard procedure is available for scoring TAT responses. The test has been modified for children, and Uma Chaudhary has written the Indian adaptation of TAT also. And why do we need Indian adaptation? Students, in the foreign test, that was TAT of Morgan and Murray, they, for example, there was a boy that who was playing violin, but in Indian version there is a boy who is playing iktara, right? Because in India we were more familiar with the iktara rather than violin when we have this conversion, right? So it was important to take away the biases that can occur in the test because of the culture, right? We have to remove the culture bias. That is why the revised test was written by Miss Uma Chaudhary. Now there have to be, the subject has to make dramatic stories, right? She can take 50 minutes for 10 pictures. That means 5 minutes for each picture. Here she has to tell current situation, thoughts and the feelings of the character, preceding events, outcome. Now when we have to evaluate it, we have to see how much time the person has taken, right? The time measured should begin when the picture is presented and stop when the person has written the story. Now, recording a subject's complete responses should be recorded along with any noteworthy behavioral observation, exclamation, stuttering, pauses, etc. Now, there is questioning and inquiry also. To produce an unhampered and free flow of the subject's fantasy material, we should avoid it. Order of presentation, usually the card should be administered according to their sequential numbering system which is given behind the card. Now there is a third projective technique, that is sentence completion test. In this sentence completion test, there are number of incomplete sentences. The starting part of the sentence is first presented and the subject has to provide the ending to the subject. It is held that the type of ending used by the subject reflect their attitude, motivation and conflicts. The test provides subjects with several opportunities to reveal their underlying unconscious motivation. Now students, sentence completion test method has been constructed with standard set of items for use in general personality assessment, analysis, clinical application, attitude assessment, etc. Right? We measure egocentricity, moral attitudes, marital satisfaction, depression. Now often these tests are indirect or have direct clues also to their underlying attitudes, effects and concerns. They show through our performance, self-report and self-description. It consists of the words or phrases usually referred to as an item stems, and the people are asked to complete the sentence. How individuals go about this task tends to reflect the kind of a person they are. Now for example, I am giving you the criteria how this test is. My father. Now the person can write, my father is my hero. My father is very short tempered. My father is a businessman. Now these three answers are showing different outlooks of a person. The businessman shows the financial attitude, right? The short temperedness shows the behavioral attitude, right? And the my idol shows the hero worshipping. So a person's attitude towards the parent can be detected through this type of an incomplete sentence. We have to evaluate it very clearly. Now the fourth test is Rosenberg picture frustration study, and it is also known as PF study. This test was developed by Rosenberg to assess how people express aggression in the face of frustrating situation. The test presents, with the help of a cartoon-like picture, a series of situations in which one person frustrates another or calls attention to a frustrating situation. Now, whatever the cartoons are doing, it is related to the frustrating situation. जहाँ पे एक दूसरे को तंग कर रहे हैं, जहाँ पे वो परेशान हो रहे हैं कार्टून. Now the person has to give. The subject is asked to tell what the other frustrated person will say or do. जो परेशान हो रहा है वो क्या बोलेगा. अब उसमें आपका सब्जेक्ट ऑलरेडी परेशान है किसी ना किसी वजह से, वो जैसे खुद रिएक्ट करेगा वैसे ही वो कार्टून से रिएक्शन देगा, राइट. The analysis of responses is based on the type and the direction of aggression. An attempt is made to examine whether the focus is on the frustrating object or on the protection of the frustrated person and on the constructive solution of the problem. Now, how we will evaluate? We will see the dialogues of the person, that what he has given, and we will try to understand whether he is just trying to protect himself, or he is giving some solution to the problem, or he is only focusing on the problem. That means ये problem है, इसने ऐसे कर दिया, इसने ऐसे कर दिया, तो वो frustrating object के ऊपर focus कर रहा है अगर उसकी इस तरीके की attitude है. Now we have to understand the person's direction of aggression. Now sometimes the direction is towards the environment, sometimes it's towards oneself, कि मैं तो ऐसे ही हूँ, मेरे से तो हमेशा ऐसे ही होता है, or it may be turned off in an attempt to gloss over or evade the situation. The Indian adaptation was given by Parekh. Draw a person test. It is a simple test in which the subject is asked to draw a person on a sheet of paper. A pencil and eraser is provided to facilitate drawing. After the completion of the drawing, the subject is generally asked to draw the figure of an opposite sex person. Finally, the subject is asked to make a story about the person as if he has a character in a novel to play. Now, draw a person test. In this, a person draws another person of another opposite sex. Now, examinee is required to make a story, and the person is assessed on the basis of this story as well as on the basis of the drawing that he or she has created. Some examples of interpretation are: if there is no facial expression, that means omission of facial features, it suggests that the person tries to evade highly conflict-ridden interpersonal relationship. This person is going to evade the things, right? When the things are going to be very hot, or if the things are going to be bad, then he will evade the situation. If there is an emphasis on the neck, then it suggests there is a lack of control over impulses. If the head size is very big or it is disproportionate as compared to the body, it shows brain diseases, or there is a preoccupation with headaches. A person is suffering from some kind of a brain problems if the emphasis is on the brain. Now students, I hope you have understood the projective techniques because they are very insightful. They tell us about the unconscious motives, unconscious thoughts, unconscious feelings which are not depicted through the self-report measures or the other direct measures. So we have to use all these assessment techniques in amalgam, that means to